We're going to talk through Chandelure in this video. So first things first, emblems, you want to go brown and green, keep it nice and simple, right? Something as standard as that. Eject button, in my opinion, is the best battle item. This is the build I would be going, and I would be taking this Pokemon to the bottom lane. We're going to jump in practice mode and go through in detail how this Pokemon functions, because it is very unique. So early game with Chandelure, before we get into the passive build or anything like that, you need to take him to the bottom lane, and he's honestly not that great until level 5. So you're going to have to play your early game smart and understand your matchups. And ideally, you're looking to lane with someone who's got an EXP share so you can get that level 5 as soon as possible. First things first, let's go over the passive ability. So if you can see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, every time I do damage, whether it's with a skill or a basic or a burn tick or anything like that, you can see I've got this kind of stack counter, right? Now, what this is, it's like essentially a built-in slick spoon. Each stack you've got will ignore the enemy's special defense by 2.5%. So what to stack that, so you can ignore 20% of their special defense, but this only applies for Chandelure. It doesn't apply for any other Pokemon. However, it's like, this is a really good ability. Like, this just helps shred enemies, right? This is how you can get some really good damage numbers with Chandelure. The basic attack, you'll see it's kind of like a timed boosted, and when you land it, you will be burning. It does burning ticks, you can see there, and it will also slow down the enemy. So you want to use it to be able to kite the enemies back. Honestly, spamming these basics is probably just going to slow you down. So this isn't a Pokemon to be holding A with. It's more focused on your positioning, land your skill shots, and use that boosted to help kite away from the enemy. Now, when we hit level 5, there's 2 skills here. Flamethrower is the skill that's had its most recent buff. Let me just turn off this Clefairy, he's going to smash me. It is that this skill, you can see here, it's got like a circle bit and like a straight line bit. Right, now you're going to be doing damage to any enemy you hit in that straight line bit or the circle bit. However, you want to be hitting enemies in the circle bit because the cooldown of this move is like almost 7 seconds, right? Almost 7 seconds. You'll see if you land it on this test dummy, if you just hit it very close, you've still got that 7-second cooldown, and honestly, you only did like 1,000 damage. That's not that great for a skill that's got that large of a cooldown. What you want to be doing is hit it in this circle area. You'll do additional damage, which is great, but see how you've got the cooldown is already back? When you hit an enemy in that circle, you're going to reduce the cooldown by 65%, guys. So you need to be keeping this nice kiting optimal distance away from your enemies to be doing some optimal damage there. Now with Overheat, this is quite a complicated skill. You can see here that as soon as you click the button, you're just going to start launching off those attacks. It doesn't matter if you've locked onto an enemy or if there's an enemy nearby, and you can't hold it to aim. So the moment you click that button, that skill starts attacking. And that's a little bit different because I don't really think there's another Pokemon that kind of functions like that, right? Now with Overheat, you'll see that I can get 3 kind of ticks under my name there. That gives me like an extra bar of this final hit to do additional damage. But also you'll notice the cooldown of Overheat. You can reduce the cooldown of Overheat larger if you only hit once and then fire off that attack. You can see the cooldown goes to like 3 seconds. Whereas if I land 1, 2, and then launch it off, it goes to like 5 seconds. Whereas if I just keep it the whole 3 shots here, just 1, 2, 3, and then launch it off, I get like a mini cooldown reduction. It's a tiny bit, right? It's a little bit. It's probably the equivalent to blue buff or something like that. So Overheat, this is a move that has, quite good skill cap. You want to be keeping your good distance from the enemy, and you don't have to always be, I'm going to turn off cooldowns here. You don't always have to be landing, like you can hit anywhere here, right? But that does require quite a bit of skill there. And another thing to add with this Overheat is that the moment you take your, finger off that button, that's the number of kind of Overheat stacks you'll have ready for that next hit. So if you want to land 3 hits, you got to keep your finger down on that button, right? That's really important, right? If you go after 1, then you click, that's how that operates there, right? Super important. Let's move on to these next 2 skills here. So Imprison is a really, really potent skill. What this will do is it will immobilize the enemy and it skill locks them. Now this is really, really frustrating to burst because look at, like, it's a nice little AoE, like it, you know, it's enough, right? Like you can block a path really well with this, right? Like if they're trying to engage on your team in this ray pit. So you can use this in the ray pit, and for example, you can fire this off and any enemies who walk in here are skill locked, right? Which is really, really frustrating. And the first enemy to walk in is immobilized, which is really, really frustrating to burst. And when you get this at level 13, which is when it goes to plus version, you can see plus Overheat, plus Imprison. Imprison will immobilize briefly any enemies who walk in it. So at level 13 at that ray fight, it's really, really good. And Overheat plus will just reduce the cooldown by 1 second, which is really nice. The other skill that you've got here is Poltegeist. Now Poltegeist it's like a little mini damage dealer, but all the enemies in that kind of zone are slowed down. So when you land your Poltegeist, and it's nice AoE too, like it's quite a lot. When you hit that, all the enemies in that zone are slowed, and it makes it really easy to land those skill shots, right? Which is fantastic. As well as that, you know, they're creating little burn ticks whenever they move around in that area there, so it's going to keep those passive stacks up and alive. Now the last thing to talk about with Chandelure is this Unite move. With Chandelure, with the Unite move, as soon as you launch it off, you are going to be blinding all the enemies that are near you, right? Which is really frustrating because, well, you know, who likes to be blinded? Now, this move does a lot of damage, right? So you need to position yourself well, because the moment you launch it off, it's sort of like the Decidueye Unite. You don't get to move, right? You can, however, no, you can't use an eject button, right? You're stuck there, right? So, for example, when you launch this off, like if you go here and then you launch it off there and the enemies dive in that bush, you're in a lot of trouble, right? So you've got to be very, very careful where you're positioning with that Unite move. Now, the last thing to mention with Chandelure is that the plus version of Flamethrower is really, really nice. What it will do is it will actually increase the damage you deal afterwards, right? So, you know, you still get that same cooldown reduction, but now you can see you've got this like you can see it enhanced, right? Flamethrower plus damage increase effect. You are dealing a lot more damage. So if you get this going with the blue buff, for example, let me just clear this blue buff here. All right, and I'm going to turn cooldowns back on. Okay, you can launch this, you can get that off, and you can see you can actually deal that damage again and keep it up the entire time with this blue buff. And this is especially potent late game when you hit that level 13 because you get the additional cooldown reduction. Okay, and if we jump into Unite DB here and have a look at the stats of Chandelure, these are the most important ones. Cooldown reduction, you're going to get that at level 5, at level 9, and at level 13. Those are your very important power spikes there. And you can see that special attack stat goes up quite a lot from level 12 to level 13. So it's very, very important that you try and hit that level 13 by that Rayquaza fight. That is your most important goal. Let's have a look at our macro gameplay when we're using Chandelure. First things first, we need to understand our matchup, right? They've got a Mamoswine who can sort of dive, but not really. So we got to keep our distance from him, like a nice safe distance. They've got a Mimikyu, that's a little bit scary. They've got an Absol, that's very scary. They've got a Greninja, that's pretty tricky to deal with. But if he goes Water Shuriken, that's not as tricky. And they've got a Mr. Mime, which just quietly is really annoying because if you get caught out by the walls, you don't have the mobility to get out. So this is playing a match with Chandelure where it's a very, very poor matchup. Like you don't, I'll just pause here. You don't want to be playing Chandelure against dive Pokemon. That's a bad matchup. You want to be playing Chandelure against Pokemon with poor mobility, who struggle to get into the fight as much. So for example, so if I just flick back over to Unite DB here, the sort of Pokemon that you want to be versing with Chandelure would probably be like the likes of Azumarill, the likes of Buzzwole, the likes of Charizard, right? Duraludon would be awesome. You know, even Decidueye is pretty decent, although Decidueye can outrange you, so, you know, you've probably not, right? Really good against Clefable, right? Especially with the anti-healing item. you know, good against Garchomp, decent against Espeon, decent against Eldegoss, right? These Pokemon that don't heavy dive, fantastic against Goodra, pretty good against Metagross. Just, actually no, bad against Metagross. Metagross will destroy you because it just goes in with Magnet Rise. Decent against, you know, Hoopa, pretty good against Machamp, you know, great. So it's pretty good against these Pokemon with low mobility, right? Like decent against Ninetales, pretty good against Pikachu, great against Scyther, great against Trevenant, decent against Serena, okay against Garchomp, you know, these Pokemon with that poor mobility. The bad matchups is other Pokemon like Zorak. You don't want to see Zorak. Absol, you don't want to see the likes of Absol, Zorak. Greninja can be a little bit tricky if you know, if it's got the Surf build. Dodrio's tough to deal with. Dragapult can be very frustrating because he's got that mobility over you. Gengar can be tough because he can just Unite move you and like pick you off with one skill combo. Mimikyu's tricky. Just don't get caught out by Mimikyu. You can see it coming. And don't stand too close to those walls with the Shadow Sneak, right? You know, Urshifu can be a little bit annoying, but you know, it's not as dominant at the moment. You're going to get outpoked by Solar Beam Venusaur, but if it's Petal Dance, you're in a better position. Zacian is going to be frustrating. So these Pokemon with a heavy dive, right? Leafeon is going to be tough to deal with. So these Pokemon that can dive you, they are bad matchups. Now this laning phase, obviously you want to be there with someone who's got an experience share, but honestly, it's not the end of the world if you don't. It's totally fine. You're secure in lane. You can see like that fake out. Honestly, even if it was at the same HP, I still don't think that Ember picks it up. And the fake out just fully secured it from that, you know, that health bar on the Indeedee there. So yeah, look, your biggest weakness with this Pokemon is having a dive matchup, number one, and number two is your early securing. It's not very good. Now, at this stage, this is where you've got to have awareness, and this is what the difference makes. I can see on our minimap, our team is absolutely destroying top lane, right? And there's no sign of the enemy jungler up top, which will probably mean that down bottom, the jungler is going to be coming out of somewhere, so you need to be playing safe. Unfortunately, our Crustle thinks that he can go in and get 4 stacks, like a 4 score in against a Mr. Mime who can put the wall down, and so the wall goes down, the Absol goes in, this thing's just trying to get his level 5 evolution. So yeah, really bad, right? Really poor level of awareness that can screw your lane. So the question is, what do you do in that situation, right? Well, you can't contest the bees, so that's out of the question. You can't defend the goal zone 1v3, so that's out of the question, right? Because if you defend this goal zone and they kill you, they get more money, they get more stacks, they get more experience. That's a bad outcome. Just to miraculously try and stop them from getting 1 stack. So have a look at where there's anything on the map, right there. Now, the pathing I'm going to take to get there is not on the underside of this wall, it's on the overside, and I'll sit in that bush while I take this bit of farm. Right, because I want to leash it back away from the enemy. That's the idea there, right? So, you know, we get enough to get level 4, and then at this stage when he's coming back down, you can then try and defend your goal, but you've got to be very safe, right? Notice I'm sitting like behind the goal. Like I'm floating on the goal to get a bit of vision, and then I go straight behind the goal. You've got to play super passive. These guys are in a position to dumpster us here, right? They've got level 4, level 6, level 5. Right, their lane is a higher level than their jungler, so I guess their jungler is maybe not being so switched on to the experience or the scores there. Now, the jungler stays in our lane, the Greninja's getting his stacks. This is a huge benefit to your team. Like, my team is getting a benefit from their jungler staying down here, and this is where jungle diff comes in. Our jungler's got great rotations. He's actually taking this Baltoy, and then he'll get these buffs and do his rotation there. Meanwhile, their jungler's taking this experience, which the Greninja and the Mr. Mime would probably be taking this experience. So it's honestly really bad play from their Absol there to do what he's doing. We're already losing this lane, right? So there's no point taking the experience away from his team so that they're a little bit less ahead than they could be in that lane. So they're trying to take our farm here. We try and get a secure. They get the secure, you know, probably as they should, right? Mr. Mime is pretty good at, you know, kind of zoning you out, and then fake out's great. And the Absol's still here. So I know this is frustrating, and a lot of people get tilted and they'll like start pinging their own jungler or something that like, oh, their jungler's still down here. Why don't you come down and support? It's like, no, that understand that their jungler overstaying is an opportunity for your team to get ahead. it's poor play on the enemy's end, right? So you need to try and punish the poor play when it can come about. If their Absol tries to come onto the space, or even their Greninja, right, they're both like on half health. If they try and come in and you can stand on these berries while they attack you and then do some damage to the overcommitted and get a kill, you are like well ahead in the game, because you're going to get the catch-up experience on the enemy, and your jungler will have done his rotations and their jungler wouldn't have, right? So you can see their team's probably frustrated at Absol. They go and take this farm here, which leaves this entire top lane free. So understand that all you have to do in this position when the jungler stays in your lane is not die. All you have to do is not die. Just play as defensively and passively as possible. And if they make a poor play on top of the already poor play of staying in your lane, then you punish that, right? So we'll see how this plays out here, right? You know, he's going in, I stand on the berries, the Crustal's tanking a whole bunch of damage, and then we get a kill. Now we're entirely back in this, right? Because now you can see here, I notice this is a fantastic opportunity to get a good Flamethrower here. I can actually secure the farm and hit the Mimic, not the Mimikyu, the Greninja if I'm good enough, and that's exactly what I do there. I get the reset. He's got a focus band that's proc there, but I'm going to eject and clean him up. So this game went completely on its head, right? And it could have gone so much worse. If we died, they like score, they maybe leave the goal on 1, they're ahead on score, they take all the experience. This lane is screwed. This bottom objective's theirs, right? Now, we're level 6, almost level 5, and our jungler's in the middle here, going to be hitting level 8 shortly with his Unite move at 8 minutes. Taking this middle farm because their team is now not in a position that have one top because they got the jungle support. They're getting great score and their team is really struggling, right? So we're now in a fantastic position. Even though our lane was looking really bad, we're now in a fantastic position. And that's what Chandelure, you're not looking to play super aggressive with Chandelure. You make a lot of smart defensive plays and you punish poor play. And keep in mind, this is a very bad matchup for me, as a Chandelure. They've got dive Pokemon. It's really tricky, right? So we rotate up to top lane purely because I can see there's a lot of value to be had here. This goes on 13, so it might as well get broken. I'm kind of hoping that my Crustal doesn't overcommit there, but I think he overcommits and dies, you know, which sucks a little bit. So we need to try and get as much value as we can possible here. We're in a 1v3, so I'm glad our team plays aggressively. Azumarill could have scored 10 there, but you know, that's totally fine. So now we're looking at like level 8 ourselves. And yeah, our Glaceon's almost level 9. He's got his Unite move, so things looking pretty good there for our team. Now we pause here. We want to rotate down to help support this Crustal's come back. They've got their score in, they've got this farm, so their Greninja's looking really good. We want to rotate back to the bottom lane here. Now, one of two things are going to happen. Our team's going to rotate and then we easily win this objective. Our team doesn't rotate, they stay and take this top objective and they get greedy for score and greedy to try and take this farm, and it takes them 2 minutes to rotate down to the bottom lane. So case number 1 is great, no one gets tilted. Case number 2 requires you to understand what your team is doing. This is solely queue mentality, and you need to understand that if you're playing something like a Chandelure, you can't just rip that objective. Like if you start ripping it, you're going to half do the objective and then their team's going to dive in and kill you, take the objective, score and break your pad, get a whole bunch of experience. You don't want to do that. So I recognize that our team is staying in that top lane, so I'm going to take a bit of experience, right? Blue buff's very good. And I'm looking to just play slow. I'm panning over the map. I'm seeing if their team's starting this Regirock. Unfortunately, our Crustal seems to be overcommitting again, because the only thing that I want to do, yeah, he like goes in. That's absolutely crazy. And then the Greninja just dodged him. That was a pretty good dodge, right? Now I'm in a 1v3 situation, which makes it very tricky. But Poltergeist is very good defense on the pad, so we just want to make sure that this pad doesn't get entirely broken. Our Azumarill is handling a 2v1 top lane and wins it. Good for him, so he gets a good reward payoff there. All our team has to do is just make sure that we're winning in terms of experience in this bottom lane. Force the enemy to overcommit, right? We've got the numbers advantage, 4v3. this Regirock gets quite low, and I'm glad at this point everyone saw it getting low. The Glaceon starts damaging, the Pikachu lands his skills, and I land my skills all at once. So that gives our team the highest chance of securing that objective when we all try and burst at once. The Greninja pops his Unite move, but we all dive on him. And look, admittedly, this could have been 40, and then no, that's actually optimal score. Yeah, it's optimal score. Although, to be honest, the 7 from the Crustle is probably dumb, but you know, who can do math that quick? Now, the Absol came down. I popped my Unite move to obscure his vision and then popped myself in the bush to try and push him back. It was a defensive Unite move, but it allowed our team to get that farm and their team not to kind of push and break here. Unfortunately, our Crustle again is overcommitting and he's going to get himself killed, which leaves us in a bit of a compromising position in this bottom lane. However, you don't have to ping Thanks or ping him or anything like that. You tell your team to gather here and you do what you can, right? Poltergeist is really good at defending this goal zone. You're keeping your distance. Understand when the Absol comes in, that's a poor matchup for Chandelure, so you get out of there straight away, right? Straight away. And then yeah, the Mr. Mime launches his Unite move on me. The Mimikyu sees this as an opportunity, actually dashes in there and yeah, lands his Unite move on me when I try and get away. So double Unite, honestly not a whole lot you can do there as a Chandelure, other than just completely backing out in the first place, recognizing that this base was lost when our Crustle decided to go in and die. This does happen from time to time, but just understand what's happening on the map. With hard won top, right? Top is going very good. We've got a very, very big score lead. All we need to do now is maintain our score lead. So there's two things here. This is mid-game. Two things. Number one is we need to hit level 13, right? At the moment, we are level 10. We're level 10. So we need to hit level 13. That's thing number one. And then thing number two is we've got a score lead. It's easier to defend in the last 5 minutes than it is in the first 5 minutes. So level 13 and a score lead. I can see that there's these Ordinos, these Indeedis down in this bottom path here. I'm looking to clean up as much of this farm as possible. And I'm also keeping an eye on what's happening in this top lane. It's a Pikachu and a Glaceon with 2 berries, so I'm going to assume that they're going to be able to defend that decently well. Crustle's looking to get some vision through the middle, which is perfectly fine. Yeah, and then this blue buff comes up. Blue buff is great on Chandelure. You want to take that whenever you can. And yeah, I noticed that there's a red buff here. This is extra experience. It's really bad on Chandelure. However, if no one else is going to take it on the team, you can't just let it sit there, especially when your goal zone's not getting threatened. Our Crustle's playing like he's overcommitting like crazy here. Does he get a kill? I'm actually excited to see if he gets a kill. He gets a kill. Does he get a 2 kill? Does he go off here? Oh no, he doesn't. No, he dies. If he actually X's it into the wall, that could have been pretty good. So as the mage, right, I'm noticing that our team's ripping this here. I should probably be up in that top bush or maybe floating a little bit kind of behind, but I want to see if any of their team is looking to get any score, because even if they get a miracle steal here, like our Crustles push their team back that far back, even if they get a miracle steal, I think we'll be totally fine, but I want to put myself in a position to secure it and give vision. So I can see it gets fairly low. You know, we actually get it with a Poltergeist, which is really stupid. You know, but it secured the objective. And yeah, at this point the Regieleki goes in. We're not going to be able to get any scoring, or I'll be very surprised if we push it in. So I'm kind of eyeing off all their farm, and this is what hopefully our team should be doing. We should be eyeing off their farm. The Mimikyu dives me. You can see immediately I know the Shadow Stick's going to come down, so I land like a Poltergeist, and the Pikachu's got great level of awareness as well. He actually turns around to try and support me there. And then I actually launch my Unite move to obscure his vision. So after he comes out from that play rough, he actually can't see me. And then, yeah, we're able to pick up the KO on him, which is really, really good. Meanwhile, the enemy actually let the Reggie walk in, which is crazy, right? I'm thinking that they're probably going to be able to, you know, pick us all up here. We recognize this and we see, can we actually do something here? You know, we've got to keep our safe distance. Their Mamoswine pops his Unite move to get that additional defense going there. And yeah, look, if there's no point going for this if you're not going to get there, right? Chandelure, poor mobility. Understand that you're not going to get there with this character, you know, because if I go for that and then I die, then their team scores in top. That's a really bad trade-off for me. So 1 minute Sword Array, we're probably going to get level 13, which is very, very good. I'm looking at the farm that's available on the map. You know, that's great. Our team looks like they're, you know, doing some farming here. What's the best play that I should be doing here? There is this middle bees. However, there is this top lane that I have a suspicion that their team might push, so I just stay top lane, right? Because again, I can defend here. I can stand behind. I've got Poltegeist, I've got Flamethrower, so it's really easy to defend. Yeah, with Chandelure. So their Mammoth goes in for it. He recognizes that their team's behind and they need to get some score. So it's honestly not that bad, right? He gets out alive. Honestly, I overextend on the Absol. He can dive me. Yes, he does pop his Unite move at 220, but I put myself in a position for him to be able to Unite me there. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. And yeah, the Mammoth almost gets a score of 40 off there. Ends up dying here. Does he end up dying? Yeah, he ends up dying. So, and that team's really trying to, you know, look to push this, but I'm glad that we were there to initially defend it, which made, you know, a little bit of a mini fight break out there. So decent stuff. We rotate back through to the top. There looks like this seems like it's almost the Ray fight. So, you know, we've got to be there to support the team. We can't just let them go in and die. So that's what we do there. And then, yeah, we're just trying to tick over to level 13 passively, because level 13 with that cooldown reduction and special attack increase is huge. So we want to try and hit that at the Ray when we can. Now, think about our positioning at Ray here. We are ahead. Admittedly, the Pikachu should probably be up here, or myself. The Azumarill is looking to get good topside pressure as the assassin, which is great. We probably shouldn't be engaging on anything until we get the cross. He's been playing fairly kamikaze as is. So yeah, we should just wait for him to come back. Our Pikachu is just poking bushes. Our Azumarill goes in like crazy. Honestly, don't know how he got out. I think he got a little bit fortunate there. There's a double Unite move from the Mamoswine. I've popped my Unite move, but you can see none of them had Vision Obscured and 2 of them had Unstoppable. So poor Unite move popped by me. I actually didn't support my team very well there. I've put myself in this bush, which in hindsight is probably not the bush I should have walked into. It should have been this back area here to fire them off as they dive in here. You know, so I try and launch off that damage. It does a lot of damage. But yeah, their Mr. Mime gets a huge confusion onto the wall, and I try and eject out as quickly as possible. Fortunately, our team was there to support. You know, it's probably, yeah, I got caught out of position a little bit there. Meanwhile, their Mimikyu and Absol, not their Mimikyu, their Absol and their Greninja get the kill on our Crustle, but yeah, I'm not really sure why they weren't there to support their tanks who engaged there, right? So now their team's in, their team's in a very bad spot. 3 dead. Our team just decides to rip, you know, but kind of not rip. I'm not sure why our Glaceon wasn't just, continuing there. We get the kill on, the Greninja. The Absol comes in and actually almost steals it with his Unite move, but yeah, we get the Ray, and it's pretty much game over from there. So we have the numbers advantage. Even if they secure the Ray, we have 3 dead. Even if we rip it, like, we're still ahead by 200 points. So we just break 1 shield and we win. So it's, it was pretty much because we had a good lead there early. So honestly, that's it. And we'll have a look at some damage numbers. All right, so you can see we got 8 kills and 9 assists. So quite a lot of successful kill involvements there. And yeah, you want to have a very good ratio here of a chunk of damage dealt and not a lot taken. Generally a ratio of like 1 to 4 is pretty, you know, 4 dealt to 1 taken. That seems to be a pretty decent ratio, but you need to make sure that your percentage of damage dealt is high, and that percentage of damage dealt reflects on successful kill involvements. Guys, hopefully you learn a thing or two about Chandelure in this gameplay.